from their political leaders. Just a few days ago, a member of Congress of this body, Ilhan Omar, shared a video on her social media account about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'll quote what it said. It said, "Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck." In other words, Charlie had it coming to him. The words that he said naturally led to his assassination. I mean, that is a reprehensible thing for a member of Congress to say, to suggest, to promote in any capacity. And there are people across this country who are losing their jobs for far less than this.
You know, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
And so, you know, these people are full of shit, and it's important for us to call them out.
All right, did you hear? Stop right there, because what you're about to see is not a hot take, not a rumor, and definitely not some random troll online. This was a sitting member of Congress saying something so reckless it made Washington suddenly pretend it didn't hear it. Democrats want you to believe this was taken out of context. But Brandon Gill didn't come with vibes or outraged tweets. He came with receipts, hard numbers, and quotes read straight into the record. And when the facts show up, the jokes stop real fast. If you think political violence is being excused way too casually on the left, buckle up, hit like, subscribe, and let's watch the full clip before I break down exactly how Brandon Gill caught them dead to rights.
I think we can all agree that political violence is wrong, it's evil, regardless of which side it comes from, and that we can all adamantly and vehemently reject it, or we certainly should. But one of the things that we've noticed recently is that affinity and tolerance for political violence is not equally distributed on both sides of the aisle. In fact, right now, social media is filled with leftists who are cheering on the murder of an iconic conservative political figure, Charlie Kirk. And it's not just random people on Twitter doing this now. There's a YouGov poll released just a few days ago, which stated that 25% of those who identify as very liberal believe that political violence can sometimes be justified. That's far too many, is it not? It is.
One is far too many.
One is far too many. That's right. Only 3% of very conservatives said the same thing, and we can agree that 3% is far too many. But there's an astounding difference between 25% on the left accepting and tolerating political violence and 3% on the right.
Now, to add more depth to Brandon's numbers, we're going to take a look at older surveys, specifically the one conducted by the Public Religion Research Institute and the Brookings Institute. In 2021, they asked, quote, if respondents agreed that because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. Back then, only 15% of Americans agreed. Fast forward to 2023, and that number jumped to 23%. That's a troubling trend, because with each passing year, more people are starting to believe violence is an acceptable response to political disagreement. So you might be wondering, what's the root cause behind these numbers? I'll let Gill do the explanation.
One of the more astounding aspects of this is that it's not just people. This comes from the very top, from their political leaders. Just a few days ago, a member of Congress of this body, Ilhan Omar, shared a video on her social media account about Charlie Kirk's murder, and I'll quote what it said. It said, "Charlie Kirk was Dr. Frankenstein, and his monster shot him through the neck." In other words, Charlie had it coming to him. The words that he said naturally led to his assassination. I mean, that is a reprehensible thing for a member of Congress to say, to suggest, to promote in any capacity. And there are people across this country who are losing their jobs for far less than this. And that, by the way, is a just response to acceptance and tolerance of political violence.
What I do know for sure is that, you know, Charlie was someone who once said, you know, guns save lives after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd in the hands of Minneapolis police.
I think he called him a scumbag.
right, have no regard. And I think, there are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
Yeah, there is nothing more effed up, than to completely pretend that his words and actions have not been recorded and in existence for the last decade or so. And so, these people are full of shit, and it's important for us to call them out while we feel anger and sadness and have, empathy, which Charlie said, no, it shouldn't exist because that's a newly created word or something.
It's amazing to me that the political left today, who were the originators and the cheerleaders of cancel culture, now have the backbone to attack conservatives for defending their assassinated friend. But there's a key difference here. Democrats want to silence conservatives for speaking obvious, self-evident, ontological truths. Republicans, by contrast, are recognizing that a constitutional republic depends on the free and open exchange of ideas that we can debate without violence, and that assassinating a political rival is evil, it's wrong, and it should not be glorified or promoted or justified in any way, including in the way that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar did.
Now that you've seen the full exchange, let's say it plainly. Brandon Gill was absolutely right, and what Ilhan Omar said was vile. Calling an assassinated man Dr. Frankenstein and implying he deserved to be murdered isn't edgy commentary. It's straight-up victim blaming. That's not disagreement. That's moral rot. And the fact that it came from a sitting member of Congress should scare every sane person watching this. What made Gill's takedown so devastating wasn't just the outrage. It was the facts. 25% of very liberal voters saying political violence can be justified. 25. That's not a fringe. That's a problem. Conservatives? 3%, and even Gill said that number is too high. That gap tells you everything. One side is flirting with violence, excusing it, rationalizing it. The other side is condemning it outright. And let's talk about leadership, because Gill nailed this point. This mindset doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from the top. When Democrat leaders mock the dead, minimize assassination, and shrug it off as he had it coming, they're teaching their base that violence is acceptable as long as it's pointed in the right direction. That's dangerous. That's reckless. And it's exactly why these numbers keep climbing. The hypocrisy here is almost impressive. These are the same people who invented cancel culture, who will destroy your career over a joke, a tweet, or a thought crime from a decade ago. But when one of their own casually excuses murder, silence, no outrage, no consequences, just spin. If a Republican had said anything even remotely close to that, the media would still be hyperventilating. Brandon Gill showed real leadership in this moment. He didn't soften his words. He didn't play the media game. He called evil what it is and made it clear that a constitutional republic only survives if ideas are debated, not enforced at gunpoint. Assassination is evil. Justifying it is worse. And anyone doing that from a seat in Congress has no business lecturing anyone about morality or democracy.